You are listening to the Connect with Us podcast from Connect English Community. The Connect with Us podcast is a fun conversation about all kinds of things that take place in and around our English learning community. We'll talk about different sides of the languages and cultures in which we live and learn every day. And we invite you to join us on this journey so that by connecting with us, we can encourage you along the way.
Connect with us, and we'll connect you to the world.
All right, welcome to the Connect with Us podcast.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, how is everybody? We hope you are doing well right now.
Because of the self-isolating.
Yeah, there are currently when we record this, this is
Quarantine.
the situation. It's a little bit concerning, but we hope that you are safe and you are healthy. Yeah, and while you're quarantined or locked down at home, you can enjoy listening or joining or listening to our podcast today. All right, so I have invited two friends today. And today's episode is going to be very interesting, at least to me. First to me, because this is the very first time ever we're going to have two guests, but only one of them actually physically sitting next to me, yeah? So we have invited two guests, and then you have seen Gary on our previous episodes, okay? But we have also invited a friend from quite far actually, yeah? So I will let him introduce himself. Go ahead, James.
Hi, I'm James. I am an American, and I have been living in Eastern Europe in Albania for about a year and a half. So that's who I am, very, very simply put.
I heard that James is a YouTuber also.
Yes.
And podcaster, yeah?
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us more about what you do,
a-
James. Oh, sorry.
So I am a videographer, photographer, and social media manager.
Ooh.
I work full-time for a nonprofit organization here in Albania doing those things. But then I also do remote work, remote video editing or photo editing, and I have a few clients in social media management that I run their Instagrams or Facebook pages and that sort of stuff. Then for fun, I guess, I make YouTube videos kind of about Albania and about life in Albania and what it's like, because I found that when I moved here, very few of my friends knew where it was, and if they knew where it was, they knew absolutely nothing about the country. And so I got here and realized the country is very rich in culture and history, with stunning landscapes that you would not expect, and so I decided to make videos specifically dedicated to those for the time being. I mean, it could go anywhere, but that's kind of my main focus on YouTube right now.
Wow, cool.
Cool. All right.
So he is literally get used to work from home.
So you do work a lot from home, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, so I used to work from home more. Now I have a full-time job and I have to go to the office, but then in present times I'll be working from home, and it feels like the old days from 2 years ago, just kind of making my own schedule and doing that sort of thing. It's really nice, actually.
Interesting. I'm an extroverted person, so I've always admired people who just, are very good, working from home, and they're very good at, just making schedule and get the work done. Because, to me, like if I work alone, I don't think I will get anything done. I'm learning a lot right now, especially in the quarantine situation. Anyway, sorry. So, I'm just very, I would like to share with you guys, as I told you earlier, that both Gary and James, they do podcasts, yeah? So what we're going to talk about today is actually a very interesting topic about the podcast itself. All right, but before we go there, we want to know a little bit more about what they do, specifically, what they podcast. All right, so Gary, what is your podcast about?
My podcast is talk about relationship because I have I have concern about how to make a good relationship because of my background.
Okay.
So Yes, I talk about mostly about teenager problems
Okay.
with their relationship, and then
Okay.
about life sometimes.
Okay.
Then I do it and I post it to Spotify and YouTube.
Okay. So, James, do you need any relationship tips? you
From
can talk to
Albania
Gary.
to
No,
Indonesia.
I'm good for now.
Okay.
If I end up getting in a relationship, I might need some tips.
All right.
What,
You know where to go.
will I have to learn will I have to learn your language to be able to understand your podcast? Because that may be an extra step in figuring that out.
That's
Hey,
true.
you've been learning foreign language for a while now, so might as well, right?
Yeah, I guess. It's not been
Okay.
going easy though.
Bahasa
Yeah.
is easy to learn.
Sure. Okay. So, how many?
How about James?
Oh yeah. Well, we'll stay with you first,
Okay.
Gary. Okay. So, how many episodes have you recorded and posted?
Okay, until now it probably 30
30?
per episode. Yeah.
Okay.
I started last year on January.
Okay.
And
Wow.
for now it's 30 episode, I guess.
Okay. So you started early 2019.
Yeah. that's
Okay.
right.
Interesting.
January.
Okay. All right, James, tell us more about your podcast. What is your podcast about?
I can't take full credit or much credit for the podcast that I participate in.
Okay.
It's myself and two other guys, Martin and Cameron. As I mentioned earlier, I am an American living in Albania.
Okay.
Cameron is from England, from Great Britain, and he lives in Spain. And then Martin is from Bulgaria, and he lives in
Wow.
Germany now. So all of those kind of mutual or similar but differing experiences of moving away from your home country to live in a different country. That's kind of the main topic of our podcast. And it
Interesting.
morphs and moves around and has kind of become more about just us in general and our lives. But we still touch on like broader expatriate topics.
Cool.
All right. How many episodes have you recorded and posted?
We've recorded one more than we posted. We've been sitting
Okay.
on one.
All right.
But I'm not sure. I think we're at 12 or 13. We were really good about being very consistent for a while, and then life happened. And when you have three guys that all have full-time jobs, trying to make extra time to do something like this, especially when they have completely different schedules, and two of them are, have partners that they have to, give attention to, then it's just difficult to make things work. So.
Okay. All right. So, how long is usually like one episode of your podcast? How long is it usually?
Our episodes are typically around 50 minutes, so
Okay.
45 to an hour. I think the longest one was maybe 55 minutes, but yeah, they're right around 45 minutes or 50 minutes.
All right. What about you, Gary? How long is usually one episode of your podcast?
Average is just like 15 minutes
15 minutes.
because
Okay.
Indonesian people doesn't. I feel that people doesn't want to hear something for
Okay.
on an hours here.
All right.
But when I do the podcast for one hours,
Mm-hmm.
an hours, they have
Mm-hmm.
listeners, but not as much as the 15 minutes podcast.
Okay, so maybe if you're thinking about, I think I don't know, this is my opinion, and I've asked some of friends that also do podcasts that most Indonesians, we're not very good in kind of listening and. I don't know, like paying attention to a very long, especially if it's only audio.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not typical. It's not typically Indonesian. Yeah, it's not very Indonesian. I think I agree with what Gary said. So that's one interesting. Okay, so I've found on internet. I actually hear this from one of my friends that do podcasts that. I think this might not really be like a very news or very new, something very new. So she told me about this phenomena called pod fade, or pod fading. So I don't know if you've heard
What
it
is that?
before.
Yeah.
So pod fading, according to the urban dictionary, it means that when a podcast begins putting out episodes more and more sporadically and at greater intervals. Yeah, typically begins with only one episode missed, but if a podcast isn't careful, it can compound, sometimes as severe as one podcast every other month, and then often leads to a podcast death. All right, so I just find this very interesting because when we started this, like this is something that very new to me, and I had no idea how am I gonna do this. Like, am I gonna do this well or not? And I think most people who try new things are like that, don't you think? Right? So
Yeah.
anyway, so I was not very sure, but I would like to try it. So when my friend, when I was starting, and my friend told me this, and it became something that makes me want to try this even more because I wanted to think that I don't think I'm gonna ever do such thing. But anyway, many people actually do. And what's interesting about this phenomena is it often happens after the seventh episode. So people often fade and stop recording after the seventh episode.
Okay.
All right. So have y'all heard about this before?
Nope. I haven't heard about this. So I just thinking that if people want to make podcast, then we should record our podcast until 7 episode, and then we can post it anyway. So about the podcast fading, pod fade, we will not do that.
Okay.
So I just thinking about that.
Okay. What about you, James? Have you ever heard of this before?
I've not I've not heard it termed that way, but I have experienced it, and also I have observed it in other podcasts that I've paid attention to. And it's not just the lower numbers, the just individual people. I mean, I've seen even large YouTubers have podcasts that just kind of fizzle out after a while because they don't put a very high priority onto it. For me personally, I had a podcast for a little while where I was just interviewing different people about what they wanted to do with their life and how they were pursuing their passion and that sort of thing. And that, I don't remember, maybe 4 episodes in, that one faded just because I got frustrated because every episode I needed to have a guest, and it was just hard to be reliant on someone else who had really no stake in the game much at all, and so it was frustrating. So that faded that way. And then in our current podcast, it makes it a little bit easier that we have 3 people, and we have a situation where if one of us can't make it, then the other 2 can still record without him, which is very convenient, and we've done that a few times. But then we still have hit this a little bit of a fade, just due to life circumstances that come up. But yeah, I'd not heard a term specifically for it. No.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned some of the reasons a little bit earlier, but they actually they mentioned a couple of reasons here, and it's kind of similar to other things that people start doing. Like maybe related to like YouTube, posting videos or, on Instagram, and even like something when you're not supervised, or you were not like in a contract of doing it. It's not like it's a job you apply and you have to finish like certain target, but this is something you initiate. Yeah. So most things that in this kind of term are kind of similar, but I'm really curious about like the challenge, the challenge in podcasts. Like, I'm wondering, and so I want to hear from both of you that have experience more than I do. So what is it about like the recording or the topic? James mentioned about like, inviting, have to have a guest. But what is it about the more detailed thing that makes it even like, I'm just going to quit?
For me, it's about the topic, because relationship, and then the listener want.
Okay.
Like I have to hear about what they want me to talk about.
Okay.
That's something really difficult for me, because it's all about the data. I can just share about my opinion for them because I have to have a responsibility for what I talk about.
Okay.
So I have to do the research and then looking for what is the term of it, and then the topic, the biggest issue of what I'm talking about, something like that. And then for the recording, it's yes, make me have to really focus on it because the editing will really hard to do because the minutes it's so long.
Okay.
15 minutes until 30 minutes, I guess.
All right.
So yeah, the editing and the topics. I will go for that.
See, I don't know that because if you guys know, want to know that I actually don't do our editing. Our media person, Gary here, does pretty much all of them. So I want to learn. Yeah. Okay, James. Like besides earlier, like guests, what other challenge do you find that just you think would be very difficult and make people often quit?
Yeah. So. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. I just lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I was saying.
That's okay. Go for it.
Okay.
I hope that's not because of us.
Oh man, can you ask the question again? I just completely. I did not sleep very well last night.
No, no problem.
All over the place right now.
I just so the thing is, obviously, like the thing that we initiate to do is more challenging because there is no such contract or you're not a salesman with certain target. You just do it because I want to do this, and then maybe you wanted to be famous or you want to make money, but there's no such as contract that make you must do it or force you to do it. So but what are challenges specifically in podcasts besides maybe topic or guests, but maybe like the recording or the ideas or I don't know. So go ahead. I want to hear from you.
So I remember what I was going to say. I have a few thoughts on this. If I relate it to making YouTube videos, or any videos, a YouTube video will take longer to shoot probably and potentially longer to edit, but you see the result very tangibly. It's very easy to look at it and say, that's what I made. If you record a podcast, chances of you going back and listening to it after you finish editing are very slim. That being said, also, they're going to be longer, so it's less likely for other people to be listening or watching or whatever. That makes it difficult to see improvement.
Okay.
To me, what drives me to do a lot of things is the striving to get better. So I make videos because I love it, but I keep making them to try to make the next one better than the last one. With a podcast, if you're just talking, there's no way to gauge if you're better at doing something better at talking this week than you were last week, or better. You maybe get better at interviewing or something, but if it's just a conversation, there's no way to gauge if you've improved at all. And so it kind of gives this feeling of like you're just kind of stuck in the same thing and not going anywhere, especially as a smaller podcast that doesn't have any monetary value, doesn't make any money, there's no advertisements, whatever. You're just doing it for fun because you like to have a conversation. But I mean, our podcast consistently gets maybe 10 or 15 views or listens, and it's kind of a little bit demoralizing where you're like, okay, I spent an hour recording this, an hour and a half editing this, and only 15 people are paying attention to what's going on. Whereas, like I said, with a video, I would have spent hours and hours making a video. Like when I came to Indonesia, I was making videos and they were not getting that many views, but I kept making them because I knew I could make the next one better than the last one.
Okay.
Now the other thing about that is, also when it comes to kind of income, but not necessarily like strictly income, it's what they call the 80-20 rule, where you want 80% of your results to come from 20% of the effort, or 80% of the causes to come from 20%, or 80% of the effects to come from 20% of the causes.
Oh, okay.
So you don't want to be putting all of this effort into something when you're getting minimal back. So for me, I'm going to put 80% of, or I'm going to put 20, like a lot of my, oh man, my brain is just not working. I just completely lost it.
Take your time.
Basically, you're putting in probably more effort into this and you're getting less return. So I put 20% of my entire effort into making videos, but that's my primary income. Now, if I put 50% of my effort into a podcast and it comes back at 10%, then it's not very sustainable because I'm putting in way more than I'm getting back.
Cool.
Interesting.
So I think that sort of thing where you are putting all this effort in and you're not getting anything back just doesn't really make it causes you to just kind of burn out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. That's a very good thought to share, James. I had never thought about that.
80-20 rules.
Yes,
Okay.
we learned. So if I may share the statistic that I found earlier, a couple of days ago from internet. This one's from the podcastinsights.com. This is from podcastinsights.com, and they do this statistics for podcasts. As per January 2020, there are actually 900,000 podcasts. Yeah, so there are like 900,000 podcasts, and there are over 30 million episodes. Yeah, as of January 2020. But if we may go back a little bit, this is the statistic that makes me very interesting and make me interested. I mean, it's from 2018 actually. So I found from the amplifymedia.com, and there's this the person Todd Cochrane. He's the CEO at Raw Voice or Blueberry. I don't know how to pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this company actually tracks podcast activity from its purview as one of the largest podcast hosting providers. They monitor and analyze Apple Podcasts and other sources. So they, according to them. So in 2018, there are roughly about 540,000 podcast titles, and the number rises by about 2,000 every week. And how many of those 540,000 podcasts are actually active and still production? Yeah. So Cochrane estimates that in the previous of 2 years, from 2018, there are actually 200,000 new podcast titles appeared. Okay, and more than half are out of production. Yeah, I mean, if you this doesn't include the limited series. Obviously, if it's series, it ends and that's just it. But overall, mortality rate of or pod fade is actually remarkably 50%. So half of those are actually,
disappear.
Faded.
Okay.
Yeah. And they tried different kind of like interval. At first they did like 3 months, and then they did a year interval, with this podcast post, new episode. But even after they did that, there was only about 20% of the 550,000 podcasts produced a fresh episode. That's crazy, don't you think?
Yep. 50% disappear is crazy.
So yeah, I don't want to be I don't want to be in that statistic. I don't want to be in the 80% that just faded. All right, so this is happening, and I guess some people just think it's something that doesn't really when they started with minimum gadget, it's almost free. Yeah, so they often don't take it seriously, but we here actually take this very seriously. So I want to hear from you guys about what do you think we should do. What do you think? And I think our audience, our listeners or viewers out there, they want to know if they were to start, or they might have started one right now, what they ought to do to keep that consistency, because it's very important.
What do you think, James?
Let's go to James first.
Well, everything in my life and anyone's life probably, but I've realized this about mine, comes down to priorities. And when you set certain priorities above other priorities, then it's amazing what you can accomplish. So for me, as a personal quick example, I set traveling as a priority over many other things, which means that I will, drive. When I was in America, I was driving a car that was not very nice. I was living in an apartment that wasn't great, but it was cheap. Things like that, because I wanted to be able to travel. So I didn't want to be paying for car payments when the two monthly payments could be the same as a trip somewhere. That being said, when it comes to podcasts, in order to prevent this, you have to really set it as a priority in what you're going to do. So it's difficult when there's no return, when you're not getting anything back from it. But if it's something that you actually want to do, then you need to just set a priority and one thing, set it as a priority. One thing that some friends and I talk about frequently is the concept of done is better than perfect. If I'm making a video, I can always find ways to make the video better. I can always find a better song. I can always make the shot a little bit better. But if I'm always correcting it and always making it better, it will never actually be put on YouTube. So in terms of podcasts, people often will think, oh, I need this guest, or I need this thing, or this podcast wasn't quite long enough, or whatever. And sometimes you just have to record something and put it up just to keep yourself consistent. Just the act of putting it up is going to kind of push you over that initial hump, and you'll get back into stride again. But you won't if you haven't set it as a priority. Because if in the back of your mind you're thinking, oh, I'll just do that later, I'll do that next week. Well, you'll keep pushing it until the next week.
Interesting.
And for me, I don't be afraid because of the pod fading thing, because I think in the future we should have more information day by day. So because of that, people need podcasts. Because they can listen to us. Meanwhile, they do their activities, so they don't have to, just sit and consume our content without doing anything. Okay. So because of that, I believe that podcast will be such a really great content in the future, because of our time is limited. And we need more information from it. So what we should do is just keep the resilience of it. We have to consistent doing it and give the best we can for the content.
Okay.
And then we will have our loyalty listeners.
Whoa.
because the topic, and then because we give what they need, they will not go anywhere. Just stay with us.
Wow, vote Gary for Better Bandar Lampung, right? All right, I'm just teasing. Okay, so again, when it comes to consistency, I think I really like the idea of priority and making priority. And earlier when you James mentioned something about like planning, if I'm not mistaken, because you work from home, make just come some sort of schedule, I think. So if we were to make plan right now, okay, so let's I think one of the things that will work is actually making plans. So for your soon next, podcast, what do you think you will talk about? Do you have any idea right now?
Yes, I have. I want to talk about love different religions.
Oh, love between different religions. So if the couple in different religion, okay, wow, all right. So could you describe a little bit about it?
Yeah, because of in Indonesia, we it's really hard for us if we have relationship because of different religions itself. Because Indonesia, our culture is if you want to have relationship, you have to stick with the same religion because of the principal ideas and stuff, you know. Then because the problem is really big in Indonesia, I will talk about it, you know.
Interesting.
What should you do, and then
All right, James, do you have in mind if you were to, to record? I don't know when soon, but if you were to record one soon, what topic would you talk about?
Well, we're actually planning on recording tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
Because all three of us are quarantined and stuck into our houses, so we figured take advantage of that. That's actually going to be what our topic is how these different countries have been reacting and responding to this
the current issues,
global pandemic that is currently happening. So that topic kind of got handed to us on a silver platter because a lot of what we can talk about is just differences and similarities between the countries that we live in versus the countries that we came from. So it gives us a pool of about 6 countries to talk about.
Interesting.
And we all have decent experience and knowledge about at least 2 of them. So it makes it easier to, we can talk about just about any topic and just talk about, what's the differences between these countries about this topic, or what are the similarities about this other topic, or whatever. So we'll record tomorrow, probably with the main focus of the global pandemic, but then we often stray from our topic and talk about random other things as well, which makes it fun.
I think I do that too. I try to. That's why I don't want to do our podcast too long, because I'm just pretty sure that we're gonna just off the topic very far. All right. So, but it's very interesting, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today, podcasters. Looking forward to listening and watching to your.
Can I say what?
Yeah, go for it.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes,
when
please.
You mentioned not wanting to get off topic, I actually think that being able to get off topic is a better. How do I phrase this? I think it is a way that pod fading will happen less, because if you're always focused on a particular topic, then listeners may or may not care about that particular topic. They're going to cut you'll have some that want to listen to that topic, and that's all. But the majority of them are going to come back because they've developed some sort of relationship with you as the person recording it. As I've found with my YouTube channel, I'll make a YouTube video and think this one won't do as well because it's not about Albania. But all the people that like my videos just want to watch it because they like my videos. They don't care if it's about Albania or not. But then I get Albanians that only care about the Albania videos. So those videos are higher. But when you go and you're very strict about a topic in each podcast, in each episode, you don't develop the same relationship with the listeners. So some of the more successful podcasts that I listen to, they have kind of a topic, but really it's just the 2 people talking back and forth, and people come to kind of feel like they're sitting at the table with them and having a conversation. Oftentimes they're just listening in on a conversation, but it makes the viewer or the listener think that, or it makes them feel like they're part of it. When you're just talking about a particular topic, it makes it feel much more like a lecture or a TED Talk or something rather than a conversation.
Wow, that's true. Wow. You learn something new every day. Thank you, James. Thank you for sharing that. And like I said, I'm learning. We all are. And just do something more differently. And I'm really actually glad you mentioned that about the off topic, because I've always being so cruel or being so mean about that to myself, because I was like, why did you do that? And you're being ridiculous, and you're gonna ruin this. But I think that's a very interesting thought, and I really like it, actually.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, James. Good luck to the podcast and work and the videos. We're looking forward to see more posts and videos.
What is your channel then? We have to.
Oh yeah.
Say it.
My channel is just my name, youtube.com/James Lightheart. Lightheart is spelled Leithart, but that's going to be difficult if you're just listening to this. So I'm sure you'll put it in show notes or title or something. It's just my first name, last name. Very simple if you can figure out how to spell it.
And I actually, you're wearing the hood with your logo on it, right?
Yes, I am. This is my logo right here.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. Well, once again, thank you, and I hope you viewers also learned something new today.
Yep.
Maybe you were thinking about starting your own podcast episode, or your own series. Just start it, and keep working on it. And we're so thankful that this is our 8th episode. So we're not gonna fade. We'll be right here, and we'll continue recording more podcasts for you to enjoy. Okay. So thank you, Gary. Thank you once again, James.
Thank you, James.
Absolutely.
We will,
thanks for having me.
Probably invite you for another episode about different topic, and it'll be fun to have a conversation again.
Anytime.
All right. Well, see you on the next episode of Connect with Us,
and we'll connect you to the world.
Connect with us, and we'll connect you to the world.